Madam Chairman?
We need to vote her in.
That's right. We need to vote her.
I think we need to vote.
We need to vote you in.
So I think we'll just announce to the group that there's a quorum, and we need to have an acting chair voted in for the evening if somebody wishes to propose one.
I move for Tracy. Second.
Motion and a second. I'll vote. Commissioner Bradley?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Peoples?
Aye.
Alderman Cone?
Aye.
Commissioner Boaz? Commissioner Strouder?
Aye.
And Commissioner Vines?
Aye.
The motion passes, and Acting Chair Boaz has it.
All right. Quorum and call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Bradley?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Peoples?
Aye.
Alderman Cone?
Aye.
Chair Boaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Strouder?
Aye.
Commissioner Vines?
Aye.
And the motion passes with all present voting yes.
I understand that the next two items will be covered together by...
Roman.
I thought it was Roman, but it was...
Yes, they will be. You and Heidi.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the commission. As you mentioned, I'm going to cover two rezonings that are on your agenda as part of the same presentation. You may have noticed that the resolution that you received also covered these rezonings in one resolution as opposed to two separate documents. So hopefully there won't be much confusion. The first rezoning is of a single dual zone parcel with the address of 4001-99 Shoto Avenue. It's located at the northeast corner of Shoto Avenue and Sarah Street in the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood, a couple blocks south of the IKEA and the Cortex District. And the rezoning is from dual zone parcel, a combination of the G Local Commercial and Office District and the J Industrial District to just the G zoning district. The existing use is phase one of the mixed-use development project called Chroma, which is currently under construction. That development project consists of 235 apartments, 18,000 square feet of retail space on the ground floor, and a 365-space parking garage. The petitioner was granted a variance to construct that development project in advance of this rezoning, and the rezoning would basically clean up the zoning map. The petitioner is 4001 Investors, LLC. This is a joint venture between Green Street, St. Louis, and the Coleman Group. And Mr. Brian Pratt of Green Street, St. Louis is here tonight and will be available for questions afterward. The second rezoning is of three parcels, 4113 to 4123, and that would be rezoned from the D2 family dwelling district to the G zoning district. The site is very much smaller than the other one. As you can see, it's basically located across Sarah Street from the other zoning site. The existing uses are three vacant lots, and the petitioner would like to consolidate those three small parcels with an adjacent parcel located on the corner, and that's currently a vacant gas station and convenience store where they'd like to consolidate those parcels and construct a 64-space public parking lot. That would likely be a pay lot, and it would serve the visitors to the Grove Entertainment District as well as the mixed-use project that's currently under construction. The petitioner is 4105 Investors, LLC, which is made up of the joint venture of the two same firms that I mentioned earlier. So this is a project that's been around for a while. As you can see, this is a site plan that was submitted by Green Street back in 2014, and the configuration has changed a little bit. At one point, I think the intent was to have a supermarket as being one of the anchors of the site, and that sort of fell through. The market demand wasn't there. But when Green Street paid the city a visit, we basically informed them that that development project would be in conflict with the city's strategic land use plan and the zoning code, and both of those items would need to be amended in order for the development project to go forward. So approximately a year later, in 2015, the Planning Commission amended the strategic land use plan, amendment number 13, and changed the strategic land use categories for that geographic area from a number of different categories to specially mixed use in order for that development project to go forward. So this is an existing zoning map for the area, and as you can see, the large 4001 site is primarily zoned as J Industrial District, shown here in gray, and there's a sliver that's still zoned as G, Local Commercial and Office District. As I mentioned, the Board of Adjustment has already granted a variance for the construction of the project, so we're basically just cleaning up the zoning map, getting rid of the J Industrial zoning, and having the project be in compliance with the zoning code. The other rezoning site is across Sarah Street. It includes these 3 vacant lots, which are currently zoned B2 Family Dwelling District. Those 3 parcels would be consolidated into a single parcel with the adjacent parcel, which is already zoned G, to construct that parking lot. But the B2 Family Dwelling District doesn't allow parking lots, and that's the reason the petitioner has requested a rezoning of the site. This is an aerial photo of the site. It's a little bit out of date. It's about a year and a half old. But you can see this large parcel where the mixed-use development is currently under construction. Immediately to the east is a relatively recently built Commerce Bank site. You have some large industrial structures around the periphery as well as some commercial uses. These are the 3 vacant lots along Shoto Avenue. The gas station and convenience store is located here on the corner. You have some residences in the area, as well as some commercial and industrial properties nearby. And this is Chroma, the mixed-use development project under construction. You can see on the right the apartment building, 4 stories, and on the left is the parking garage. Immediately to the right is the Commerce Bank building, and to the north is the industrial complex, and to the south is a mid-rise office building and the entry sign to the Grove Entertainment District along Manchester Avenue. This is a recent site plan submitted by the petitioner. The apartments are shown here in yellow. The ground floor retail is shown here in the light blue. The garage is in gray, and it will be obscured by the frontage there along Shoto Avenue. And as part of phase 2 of the development project, this green space will also include some mixed-use elements. And this is a rendering of what the development project would look like upon its completion, looking northward from Shoto Avenue. The other rezoning site, as I mentioned, is at 4113 to 23 Shoto Avenue. 3 vacant lots. You can see them looking northward. Immediately to the right is the gas station. The convenience store has been vacant for a year or so. Immediately to the west are some residential buildings. To the north is an industrial concern, and on the other side of Shoto Avenue, which also fronts onto Manchester, is a parking lot where another mixed-use development project has been proposed. This is a photo of a site plan of the parking lot. It again would serve not only the mixed-use development project across Sarah, but also visitors to the Grove Entertainment District, where there is a high demand for parking, particularly at nighttime. The city strategic land use plan designates 3 of the 4 parcels as part of the rezoning sites as a specially mixed-use area, excuse me, which allows these proposed uses. And in terms of comments, the proposed rezoning of the single parcel at 4001 Shoto and the rezoning of the 3 smaller parcels on Shoto would achieve 3 objectives according to the zoning administrator. Those are listed on your slide. The rezonings are in conformity with the strategic land use plan as you just saw, and staff is recommending approval of the rezoning. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Pratt of Green Street, I know Green Street's all over here as well.
Before we have discussion, could I get a motion?
Have a motion before we have discussion? Think about that. Well, okay, second.
Sorry, that's how we do it in Forest Park Advisory. That's that habit. Discussion? Question?
Great plan. Exciting.
Any further discussion?
Previous roll? Do we do previous roll?
Sure.
Great.
All right.
All right.
Hearing no objection?
Hearing no objection? Thank you. Approved. All right, next item is the Conservation Board review.
Thank you.
I will remember, you don't worry.
So, I should say that Don Rowe wasn't feeling well today, so he's not here this evening. And for the record, I'm Dan Krause, Cultural Resources Director, and the presentation on the Preservation Board review decision will be by David Meyer.
But the part that David Meyer doesn't know is how to use it.
So,
David's moonlighting tonight.
But I said that, I draw the line at knowing when to push the button. So the next item is a demolition decision review from a Preservation Board decision pertaining to 5857 Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. And so which one comes next? Is it this?
it's actually the slide.
Oh, so were we going to do this?
That comes out.
That comes after. Okay. I didn't prepare that properly. So I guess the presentation that's before you is the presentation that was presented to the Preservation Board, and it was also included in your packets. As you know, since I think all of you have been through one of these since we just did one, except Commissioner Vines, who has the position per ordinance of being on the Preservation Board, so I think he's probably at this point maybe semi-familiar with how the operation works. The appeal from the Preservation Board to the Planning Commission takes place at the discretion of the person whose demolition permit was denied, and your review is just of the record. In order to decide whether you want to take up that review, we're presenting the documents that were presented at the Preservation Board in a sort of streamlined form. The first is the slideshow that was prepared by Cultural Resources, just so you can get a sense of the building itself without getting into any of the extreme detail. And also in your packet was the decision of the board itself. So should we just go ahead and run through the slideshow, although again, you all had it in your packets. So obviously the first picture is of the building. And then there's a map of the building. Errol, I'm sorry, obviously you're not here, but hopefully you have had this and had the opportunity.
Yes, I do. I do have my package. Thank you.
And so the next picture of the site highlighted, and then a photo of the rear of the building, and another photo of the rear of the building, and then a couple of photos just to put it in context on the Martin Luther King Street frontage. Should have done this first. So this next slide, and Earl, I know you don't have this, but this is a summary of the process that's before you today, which is just the decision on whether you wish to undertake a full review of this decision by the Preservation Board below. As you know, it's a multi-step process. So the first step is to decide if you want to conduct a review. If you decide to conduct a review, a hearing will be set at a later date. that will offer the appellant, property owner, and the Cultural Resources Board, or Cultural Resources Office, an opportunity to come in and present their case. Again, not offering any new evidence, just simply to present an argument regarding the record below. And then, of course, you'll also receive the record below in its entirety. Also, well, as the alternative, if you choose not to do the review, the appellant can continue on, and anyone else withstanding also can continue on into the circuit court and undertake an administrative appeal. The review that you're undertaking is limited to determining the correctness of the provisional decision of the Preservation Board. Your decision tonight to take it up or not to take it up will decide whether it's final. If you don't take it up, it becomes final. If you do, then it remains provisional until you're done. Whoop, sorry, go back. And then, of course, your standards are set forth in the statute, in the ordinance that governs this, and that's really not where we are at this moment. And then again, at a later date, oral and written arguments may be made. No new evidence is considered. So now I guess there's a background slide, but we have already seen the pictures. You've got the decision. The building is in the Wellston Loop National Register Historic District, and that's why it undertook the Preservation Board had a review opportunity of the building permit, and it is owned by two individuals, Brenda and Nora Ollie. The Preservation Board considered it at a hearing in July, and the review request came in a timely manner, and you now have it before you with a cycle that is underway. You have a 45-day period to go through this process, which runs out in the next week or two, which is why it's before you tonight. And again, the procedure is outlined there, but it's pretty straightforward. Demolition permits are applied for at the building division, routed through Cultural Resources, among others. Their denial was appealed to the Preservation Board, and you're now reviewing that denial at the Preservation Board, which was, I guess, affirmed by the Preservation Board. So the action tonight, Planning Commission discussion with staff. Want to go to the next slide? Planning Commission discussion with staff, followed by a vote in regards to accepting the undertaking of this review at a future meeting or not. And then there's a new cycle depending upon what happens. There's a 20-day response cycle to notify the applicant. And then, as said before, the evidentiary record will be prepared, and at a later date, when everything's ready, you would have a hearing. So that is the gist of what is in front of you, substance-wise and procedure-wise. I guess, decision is yours on if you want to continue down this process or if you think that it is something that should stand as it was. And I will note, because I think it's been mentioned along the way over the last months and maybe even years for some of you who have been on here, there had been some concern along the way about the review process, and there had not been a lot of track record at the circuit court. In recent months, there has become now a track record at circuit court. There's been, I believe, 2 cases that have gone through the process, handled by the City Councilor's office. In both cases, they were ones you had seen, and in both cases, the circuit court affirmed the original Preservation Board decision. So there should be no discomfort if it had been mentioned along the way to you that this is a shaky system. We now have 2 different judges saying just fine. So for what that's worth, if you want to talk further about the decisions or all, we can discuss that.
So just a general comment here, we cannot consider any additional information. Pretty clear right here in what was handed out to us that physical evidence did not provide any physical evidence of financial hardship, structural instability, or any documentation by a licensed engineer, as well as any actual cost for rehabilitation. So in my mind, if we can't consider anything above and beyond that, and those items were not presented, I don't see there's any reason we need to review them.
Agreed.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion? Or do we? Do we need a motion? Either way, right?
I would take a motion up, yeah.
Sorry?
I would take up a motion,
Take
yeah.
up a motion, all right.
I move to uphold the decision of the Preservation Board. Second.
Previous role.
Any objection to previous rule?
The decision will be issued to the applicant and choose however they wish.
This is Earl. David, can I ask a procedural question now that this is passed? Is there
Certainly, go
any,
ahead.
yeah, is there any liability or fiduciary responsibility to the board if something were to occur that would become court-bound or legal? If there's some kind of suit going through, do we have any fiduciary or liability on this?
You mean
On if a person was hurt or some damage were to occur?
Because the building wasn't demolished pending the review?
Yeah, something of that nature. Somebody was hurt, or if
I don't know that
Not
that's something we want to discuss in open session, but
Okay.
I think that's maybe something we would want to research and take back.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the last voting item, the others are just delegated items. Motion to adjourn?
Well, actually, there's an information.
This information.
I don't know how.
I gotta scoot out.
Okay.
I feel bad. So, go that unit close.
So do we need to,
You don't need a quorum if there's no further voting items, so you can keep going with the presentation.
thanks.
Can't adjourn the meeting.
We do need people in here, though, if there's still going to be a presentation.
I apologize, that was just bad procedures on my part.
So I'll just quickly say that there are delegated items, the list of Chapter 99s under 1 acre were provided in your packet, and we haven't rounded those up for a while on the agenda, so there's a lengthy list now. Usually those are just, a few per meeting. So with that, I'll...
Great. At next month's Planning Commission meeting, there's going to be an agenda item, or at least one of the agenda items will be the establishment of a form-based district for the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood. It's been in the works for quite a while. And since most Planning Commission members weren't on the Planning Commission 4 or 5 years or so ago, excuse me, when form-based districts were established in the city, we thought it would be a good idea to prepare a brief presentation on form-based districts so you'd be familiar with both the concept and terms, so that when the Forest Park Southeast form-based district is presented to you next month, you'll be acquainted with the topic. So what is a form-based district? Basically, it starts off with being an overlay zoning district, meaning that that zoning district is placed on top of the city's official zoning district map. And the focus on form-based districts is on the form of buildings, namely setbacks, heights, massing, things of that nature, as opposed to what types of land uses are allowed on a particular piece of property. They become increasingly popular in the United States, although I think it's fair to say that some of that momentum has waned a little bit. Some zoning codes have introduced some elements of form-based zoning in their zoning code, so they're not the hottest thing on the market as they probably were 5 or 10 years or so ago. They can be established by district or citywide. I think the two large cities that are most well known for having citywide form-based districts are Miami and Denver. The city's enabling legislation for form-based districts was approved by ordinance back in 2012, and that basically established the rules and procedures as to how a form-based district gets established. About a year later, the first form-based district in the city was established, and that was for the Central West End, approved by ordinance. So what I'd like to do is to take that example of the Central West End form-based district in terms of how it was established and use that as a case study and apply it to what we'll experience next month for the Forest Park Southeast form-based district. So by way of background, Park Central Development Corporation, Community Development Corporation for that area initiated the preparation of a new vision for that portion of the Central West End in 2009. A number of different people were involved, including an urban planning and legal consultant. There was a stakeholder committee made up of residents, property owners, institutional representatives. There was a city technical committee made up of representatives of various city departments, and there was a lot of public input throughout the process. The geographic area for the form-based district is shown above, although it's slightly modified prior to being enacted. The northern boundary is the block face north of Linda Boulevard on the north, Vanderbilt Avenue on the east, Forest Park Avenue on the south, and Kings Highway Boulevard on the west. It's a very diverse area in terms of land use. It ranges from single-family buildings in the center of the area to high-rise buildings along Kings Highway and Euclid and Taylor, and ranges from corner stores to strip shopping centers like the Marketplace, and even has some industrial elements at the eastern end. So as part of a long planning process, a neighborhood vision was established, and I guess a couple of the key recommendations from that were to encourage higher density development and a wider mix of land uses in appropriate locations, excuse me, and also to promote additional development along Euclid Avenue and Sarah Street. Euclid Avenue, of course, has been a commercial street for quite a while, and Sarah Street was a fledgling commercial area, and there was a hope that could be spurred along as part of this project. So to reflect that neighborhood vision, the strategic land use plan was amended by the Planning Commission in 2011, and several blocks, particularly at the eastern and western ends of the area, were changed to specially mixed-use area, which is shown in the blue color, where that higher density development and a wider mix of land uses was being called out for. So the plan was changed in order to reflect what that neighborhood vision was, and the second step was to revise the zoning in order to try to implement the vision for the area. So the map at the bottom of the slide there is what's called a regulating plan, and it in effect serves as the zoning district map for the form-based district. You can see that there are a number of categories there, which are called building envelope standards or zones. And these are similar to the 12 zoning districts in our zoning code that range from the A single-family dwelling district to the L Jefferson Memorial District. By way of example, the East Center Type 1, shown here in red, that stretches along Euclid Avenue, as well as Sarah Street. And when you take those building envelope standards and apply them on top of the zoning district map, this is what you see. The existing zoning for the area is shown in the colors, and most of the area is Zone E, multiple family dwelling district, which is the brown color. There's also a lot of the H area commercial district shown in orange, and the J industrial district shown in gray. Overlaid on top of that are these 8 building envelope standards, and those are identified by the black boundary lines. They're placed over those colors, so the designation for the neighborhood center type 1 area, again, is this area here, shown along Euclid Avenue, and it's also applied over here on Sarah Street. Those building envelope standards are, in effect, the zoning regulations for the form-based district. They sort of trump the regulations for the city's official zoning district map. And they're formatted for each of those standards in a uniform manner. So they include a location map at the top of the page, an intent statement, which lists the purpose of what that particular standard is for, and some photographs that show the desired character of the area. Also included part of the building envelope standards are some regulations that you typically see in a traditional zoning code, such as setbacks, building heights, land uses, and parking requirements. One of the features of a form-based district that a lot of people like is the fact that there are some diagrams that help people to understand those concepts a little bit easier than a code that doesn't have any of the diagrams. So by way of example, I've been talking about the neighborhood center type 1, which is located here along Euclid Avenue and Sarah Street. The intent of that particular building envelope standard is to establish, preserve, or enhance the vibrant, pedestrian-oriented character of these streets. And some of the regulations associated with that are allowing offices, retail, and residential uses for those areas, with residential only being allowed on the upper floors. There's a front setback of 0 feet for the first 6 stories of the building, meaning that the building needs to be built right at the sidewalk. In effect, no front yard setback. And the buildings would need to be 3 to 12 stories tall. And our zoning code, for the most part, doesn't have a minimum height requirement for buildings, so this was a little bit of a different element included. And these are some photos of the types of development that are encouraged by that particular building envelope standard. Now, these buildings were already built prior to the form-based district, but these are the kinds of buildings that are desirable. On the left is the 9 North building, which includes condos and some ground floor retail that's located on Euclid. And on the right is the 6 North development project, which is located at McLean and Sarah. Also included in the form-based district are some building development standards, which include some building types, frontage types, and architectural standards. I should point out that these building development standards are regulated and administered by the Cultural Resources Office Director as opposed to the zoning administrator, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Also included are some use tables which indicate which land uses are allowed in each of the zones. In terms of the administration of a form-based district, the form-based district is triggered by a couple of different items. The most important are building permits for new construction as well as building addition. So anytime a new construction is proposed or a building addition, those trigger the form-based district. And that will continue to be the case in the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood. Occupancy permits continue to be governed by the city's zoning code. That will be a little bit different in the Forest Park Southeast area. The form-based district is administered by the zoning administrator. However, there is a provision there that allows the building commissioner to appoint somebody to administer certain elements of the form-based code if they have particular skills. And that's the element I mentioned earlier that is being handled by the cultural resources director. In terms of the administration of the form-based district, all appeals will continue to be handled by the city's Board of Adjustment. If there's some sort of a rezoning that's being proposed, whether it be a map change or a text change, that will continue to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and need to be approved by ordinance. And the enabling legislation that I mentioned laid out what areas can be designated as a form-based district. So these are some of the criteria and the minimum requirements. The area must be a minimum of at least 15 contiguous acres. It needs to identify and document a specific attribute of form-based zoning that is currently unavailable in the city zoning code. And it needs to document that the proposed area exhibits at least one of the 3 characteristics that are listed on the slide. Lastly, there are some minimum requirements. Those include a couple of the items that we reviewed, the regulating plan, building envelope standards, an indication as to how these regulations would be reconciled with any local historic districts, which there are in the Central West End. There are none in the Forest Park Southeast. There would be some goals and objectives that need to be identified. Meets and bounds legal description needs to be included. And we, of course, always need the support of the aldermen or aldermen who represent the area. I realize I've gone through a lot of material very, very quickly, but I hope that will be useful for next month's review of the proposed form-based district for the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood.
Questions? Now it might be time for a motion to adjourn.
I don't think we have a quorum anymore to do that.
I think, well, and adjournment is always in order if there's no further business.
All right.
So, is that fair? We'll mark it as adjourned at 6:05.